You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 parts. Write all your answers in the listening question booklet. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to Part 1 on page 2 of your question booklet. Part 1. You will hear a telephone conversation between a woman and a park ranger. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Almond Valley Poppy Reserve, may I help you?
Is the nature reserve open now?
Yes, we are actually open all year, although this is the best time of year to see the wildflowers.
Are the poppies blooming yet?
Absolutely. They started to bloom last week and are already beautiful, but they should peak and be in full bloom at the end of the month.
Oh, I was planning on coming at the end of this week. Is that too early?
No, not at all. The hills are already covered with orange poppies.
I thought poppies were red.
Not in California. I've never seen a red poppy here.
The Poppy Reserve is in Ocean County, right?
Right. From Lakeside, you'll need to drive about an hour east.
What time does the reserve open?
The reserve is open from sunrise to sunset. It's best to come early in the morning to beat the crowds, but for the best photography, you might want to consider a mid-afternoon visit on a weekday.
I heard that there are a lot of rattlesnakes in the desert. Is it dangerous to walk about?
Most wildlife is quite safe. There are very few people bitten by rattlesnakes, so we do recommend wearing trousers just to be on the safe side.
All right. I was hoping that I might have the chance to see some wildlife, too. Oh, how much is the admission to the reserve?
It's $5.
Can I use my National Park Pass to enter the reserve?
Unfortunately not, since it is a state park, not a national park.
All right. I heard from a friend that there is a nature tour available. Can you tell me about it?
Certainly, but can you excuse me just a sec? I'll be right back.
Okay.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
Hello?
Yes, I'm still here.
Now, you are interested in the nature tours, right?
Oh, there's more than one?
Yes. We have the general tour, which is the one your friend may have taken, but we also have 2 more specialized tours. Starting at 7:30 a.m. is our general tour. That's early for some people, I know. It's offered every hour, too. But it's a great time, and it only lasts 30 minutes.
Is that the tour that takes you to the vista points?
Yes, that is one of the highlights, along with a film introducing the park and the museum. You're welcome to tour the museum at your leisure. It's a great tour for those who just want to take panoramic pictures with automatic cameras.
Well, If I come all that way, I'd like to have a more detailed tour.
Then you are in luck, because we have a wonderful wildflower tour every 2 hours from 8 a.m. It lasts 1 hour, and the volunteer will give you information about many of the flowers on the reserve.
Besides the poppies, will cream cups be in bloom?
Yes, and you will see lots of sage too. We have a volunteer who is really good at giving tips on close-up photography.
You mentioned another tour.
Yes, the last one is the wildlife tour, but it is offered at very limited times.
Is that because most of the wildlife is nocturnal?
Yes, so we offer this tour only 2 times, 5:30 a.m. or 7 p.m.
Wow, that early? But don't the snakes and lizards like the sun?
Right. First, let me say it takes about an hour and a half, but you will have the opportunity to see other animals like coyotes, quail, and roadrunners. You have to get here before the crowds arrive or after most of them leave.
Well, that makes sense. Does it require a lot of walking?
More like a lot of standing, but most of the time you will be at 1 or 2 locations. So we recommend bringing a tripod and zoom lens if you want to take pictures.
Well, thank you very much. You've been extremely helpful and informative.
You're welcome. Glad I could be of service.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
That is the end of Part 1. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to Part 1. Part 2. You will hear a talk by a volunteer who has been taking part in a project to find out what everyday life was like 2,500 years ago in Britain during the time known as the Iron Age. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15.
Jim Stevens has been taking part in an experiment to find out what everyday life was like in Britain over 2,500 years ago, in the period of history we call the Iron Age. He is one of a group of volunteers who have been living for the last 6 months in the sort of village that people inhabited in those days, and following the sort of daily routine that ordinary people followed then. So, Jim, tell us what you do on a typical day.
A typical day in the Iron Age village begins with rising at first light. I occasionally did that when I was at home because I loved having time to myself before the family got up. But here I do it every day because it's so light. Others also get up early because they find the straw beds rather cold. We start work immediately, usually tending to our fires which have died down in the night. I feed the cattle before starting to get breakfast ready, usually porridge that's been soaked the night before. It sounds horrid, doesn't it? But it's not so bad. As it takes such a long time to cook anything, we end up eating only twice a day. We have a late breakfast after a morning's work, and then in the evening we gather together as a community. Although the evening meal provides a chance for us to chat about the day, it can be quite chilly, so we go to bed pretty early. I think we're always hungry because we use much more energy than usual. It's all the physical exertion. A lot of time is spent just trying to get enough to eat, looking for berries and fruit and things like that. There are lots of other jobs to be done, like cooking, finding wood and keeping the fires going. The biggest priority for the blacksmiths working the forge is to tend the fire and to get it nice and hot so they can carry out their tasks. They've got various things to make: tools, cooking implements and so on. So life here is about looking after the animals and looking after ourselves. Everybody's always doing something round the fire as well. It's not as if we're just sitting there chatting. Just living, surviving, takes up most of our time. And actually, it's quite difficult to fit in other things around it. For example, you might be breaking hazelnuts, spinning some wool, or just doing things like straining milk. Here, you're finding out how to do different things every day, which keeps you on your toes and keeps you interested.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 16 to 20.
And I understand that you even built your own houses to live in. Round houses built in just the same way that archaeologists think that Iron Age people constructed them. So tell us exactly how you build an Iron Age roundhouse.
It's a bit like putting up a tent at first, but without the benefit of ready-made metal poles. You mark the centre of your house with a wooden peg. What you do then is loop a length of rope around it and mark out the circle to give you the outer boundary of your building. Once you've got this, you then have to dig out the ground ready for the wall. And in Iron Age times, people didn't have shovels or diggers like we do today, but used tools which they fashioned from animal bone. It must have been quite hard work. Next, you have to start on the wall. Although there were several native trees around, like the ash and the elm, the ancients preferred oak for the wall posts, which they knocked into the circle they had dug. Don't forget to leave room for the entrance, otherwise you won't be able to get into the house. Now you can begin to see the wall of the house developing. To create the framework for the final wall, the stakes were not nailed or glued onto each other as they might be today. Instead, ones with holes cut into each end are slotted over the upright posts, making what to us looks like a fence. This procedure creates a very firm structure. To support the large roof, first you need to put up a good-sized centre post, which is secured with ropes and pegs. But it's not only this which is relied upon to hold up the roof. So the next thing you have to do is build around the post a timber scaffold tower, similar to the metal ones used in Britain today. This temporary structure of wooden poles enables you to put up the main supporting beams, which are then tied together with rope and fixed to the wall plate at the bottom of the fence. The top part of this tent-like construction is strengthened with 2 ring beams. Now the framework for the roof has to be completed. Rather like weaving a basket using rods from the willow tree, hazelwood rods are linked to the beams in parallel hoops. Now you can see the house in skeletal form. The tricky bit is thatching the roof because it requires great skill. I find this very difficult. First, you take reed bundles and cut them so that each is of equal length. Then you must fix them firmly so they won't blow away in heavy winds. The final part of the process is the daubing, which in effect is like modern-day plastering. Whereas today we use plaster and paint or wallpaper, the Iron Age people had a mixture of clay, cow dung and straw, which they daubed all over the inside and outside to give the house a smooth finish.
That is the end of Part 2. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to Part 2. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Right, now you wanted to organise a formal discussion of some sort in the class. Is that right, Daniel?
Yes, we thought it would be really good to end our psychology course with a formal debate. You know, where there's a statement and people argue for or against it.
Good idea. Where did the enthusiasm come from? Have either of you organised debates before? Fiona?
No, but one of my friends did in his last year at secondary school, and he says he got a lot out of doing it. And I know they have debates in lots of other departments here at the university.
I see. So what do you think the students, you and the others, would get out of this?
Well, a debate will encourage people to study all sides of the subject matter. And I also think listening to other people's ideas can have a focusing effect on your own. Sometimes you kind of don't know what you truly believe until you hear something you disagree with.
OK, what about the topic for the debate?
We've got 3 to choose from. We'll show you in a minute to check they're OK. At first, we thought we'd ask the other students to suggest something, but we were afraid we'd get 30 different topics. So instead, we brainstormed some, just the 2 of us, then made a shortlist, and we'll get them to vote for the one they like best.
Right.
But the thing is, if people don't know how debates work, they could feel at a disadvantage. I mean, it wouldn't affect their grades or anything, but it could put them off.
So we thought we should have a meeting beforehand to make sure everyone's clear about what's involved in a debate and how to prepare for it.
I think that's a good idea.
And we thought we could establish some key points of a successful debate there, like that debates are effective methods for considering an issue, and that you need to understand both sides of an argument in order to support one side effectively. We think it'll be best if we can use an issue that the students already have strong opinions about.
Then some people will be happy to speak in support of it, and others to oppose it.
Right. What else do you want to do at the meeting?
Well, we've got to think about how people will do the background research for the debate. We could organise everyone into 2 teams. That should save time for the main speakers. They won't have to do it on their own. And we'll need to decide on some rules, like how long each person speaks for, and to select a chair for the debate, someone who's really confident.
Fine. Now, I think you should have some sort of follow-up to the debate. After it's over, I'd like you to get everyone to write a short essay, focusing on what they gain from participating in it. And in turn, that can feed into the work we've been doing on learning and motivation.
But would you be willing to read them and report back? I mean, give some feedback on them.
I wouldn't have made the suggestion if I wasn't.
Thanks.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 27 to 30.
OK, now let's think a bit more about the meeting. You need to decide exactly how you'll introduce the students to different features of a debate.
Well, first of all, we need to inform everyone about what actually happens at a debate.
the procedures and so on. We could talk about that and write the main information on the board.
Or instead of that, we could make a summary of the main stages and hand that out.
Then talk it through. Yes, OK, that's better.
OK. But we do need to talk about body language as well.
Yes, that's a very important tool. I've got an interesting article on that with some good diagrams of techniques for things like eye contact. I'll make some copies for you to give out.
Great.
Then we need to think about where people will find the information on the debate topic. So they'll need to know where to look for the information. We could compile a list of sources, textbooks and articles and so on.
We could, but couldn't people offer their own suggestions and advice on that at the meeting instead?
Yes, get everyone involved.
Right.
What about preparation for asking and answering questions? We could try to demonstrate that, but I'm not sure how.
Maybe we could put up a list of points on the board, then discuss them.
Yes, that sounds better. Thanks.
OK, well, let's meet up again.
That is the end of Part 3. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to Part 3. Part 4. You will hear a chemistry student giving a presentation on the color purple and the development of purple dyes. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40.
Part 4. You will hear part of a talk about recent research into the design of workplaces. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Hello everyone. I recently completed some important research into the way office space is designed and its impact on employees. The open plan office had been the norm for offices around the world. I'm sure you can picture one. A big room with maybe 50 or 100 workers sitting at their workstations. You might think open plan designs are a recent phenomenon, but they actually came about in the early 20th century when businesses needed large numbers of people to do typing. These employees, usually women, used to have to sit in rows working away at their typewriters under the watchful eye of their supervisor. Over the years, designers have come up with several variations on the open theme. In particular, this has been achieved through furnishings. The early designs featured separate desks. A subsequent design introduced the concept of the cubicle. These can have either high screens that workers can't see over, or a screen just low enough to keep a lookout for the manager. And nowadays, with the increase in large call centres, a phenomenon known as hot desking is common. In this system, employees working on different shifts are asked to share the same workstation. As you can imagine, this is not very popular with staff as there is little opportunity to personalise your workspace. In fact, my research shows that employees in general dislike the open plan design. As a part of my research, I conducted a survey of the staff in several large companies with open plan offices. The employees all voiced similar concerns about the design. Firstly, they felt that the open plan took away their privacy, but many also felt the need to carry their valuables with them at all times. So, to some extent, they also felt there was less security with these designs. Another common complaint may be something for employers to consider when choosing this type of design, and this was that these types of office space are bad for the health. I was intrigued by this possibility, but looking at staff records, it does seem to be borne out. So, if this design is so unpopular, why is it so commonplace? Well, the answer to that is in the benefits that the employers feel this type of design has. Of course, there is the obvious benefit that this design significantly reduces costs, both in terms of rent and even in terms of energy use. Employers also argue that an open plan design leads to better teamwork and communication. They also feel that new staff can learn from observing other workers, so this design can actually help in training staff. However, the complaints voiced by employees seem to suggest that the disadvantages far outweigh the advantages. The reality is that unhappy workers are unlikely to work well together, and there is plenty of evidence to suggest workers are frequently distracted from their work by the noise that is all around them. What is clear is that as designers, we need to think carefully about the impact that our design has both on the staff involved and the work that they do.
That is the end of part 4. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to part 4.
That's the end of the listening test. You will now have 2 minutes to check your answers.